What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Unplayable, our Untitled, Unlimited, Unplayable podcast, all about Star Wars Unlimited. You can call it the Conversation Lab. You can call it your favorite show. Either one is acceptable. But we're back to talk about our new exciting favorite game. I'm back in the recording booth for the first time in a week because I've been traveling. Y'all been making some content, but how are you guys feeling?
Feeling pretty good. And every time you intro, you'd say that we're Untitled. There has to be some kind of pun for Unplayable and Unlimited because they both start with UN. There has to be a pun that exists.
I've been thinking about it. I don't know if there is. If there is, I haven't found it yet. I mean, honestly, like the Conversation Lab just fits so well as the title of our podcast. So
that works.
I don't know. Do we just call it that from now on?
Sure.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
That's fine.
We're just going to be wishy-washy about it forever into the future.
It'll just never have a title.
Pretty much.
It's just Unplayable.
I think we just change the title every few episodes just to keep people on their toes.
Oh, yeah. I'm down with that.
That works.
Well, I'm so excited to talk about Star Wars Unlimited. I have been on a trip for a few days, really a week. So I missed a bunch. Like I missed a lot, which we'll get into. But
did you watch our spoiler recap to catch up?
Well, I'm halfway through it. So because I noticed that, Jay, you say Bethnick every time you mean to say Benthic, and it's driving me insane.
I say Benthic when I mean Bethnick too, so it works out.
It evens out. Half the time he says one thing, half the time he says the other thing. It's just a wash.
Yeah, classic. To kick things off, though, guys, because this is a Star Wars podcast, it is a shame that we haven't talked more about Star Wars itself. So a little bit of an icebreaker, okay, to kick things off today.
Perfect.
But what is your favorite non-movie Star Wars content? Whether it's a book, comic, show.
That's a hard question, man.
Whatever.
I think that's easy for me.
Easy for you?
I'm gonna exclude TV shows too.
You're okay. If you exclude TV shows, it's easy for me.
Because it's a video game.
It's pretty hard.
Video games for me. I play video games all the time, so I'll go with it could be any number of the video games. Back in the day, Battlefront 2 was so good, but I'm gonna go with the newest one, Last Survivor.
Okay, so I in my head when I wrote this question, I was thinking like it would be story-driven content. Is that story-driven
content?
Is that the same answer for you? It's like that still is the story.
Oh yeah, Last Survivors. Fallen Order plus, right? Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah,
the story behind it.
You are truly missing out, David, because you don't believe in video games, but it's so
they're not real.
It's so good. Yeah,
I mean, you're missing out on Battlefront, the newest Battlefront 2, which has the Inferno Squadron, all of that story. And I mean, we have those characters in both games, Destiny and Unlimited now, and those are great. That's a great storyline of characters.
I just want someone sent it somewhere in Discord or I think, but it was like
just watch all the cutscenes or something.
Yeah, all the story scenes from all these things, like because I don't even know
what the word cutscene means.
I don't even know. Like,
what was the last video game you played, David?
FIFA.
I'm like genuinely thinking about this. I'm truly trying to think back. Like it has been years. There was one time, maybe like 7 years ago, that someone made me play a round of Mario Kart on some system that I didn't know, and it was. I just said, where's the Nintendo 64? Then my muscle memory will kick in.
Video games are so off of his radar that when he wrote this, he didn't even take into consideration there were Star Wars video games. So there you
go. Does Marvel Snap count as a video game?
Yeah, 100%.
It counts.
It's a digital card
I played
game.
a couple games of those.
All right, that's fair. Nothing with the controller, though.
No, man. But I mean, truly, it would be like in college, I played a lot of FIFA. The last FIFA I played was FIFA 09. Before that, Nintendo 64 GoldenEye. What a classic.
If you go back and play GoldenEye, it's impossible. That game is so hard. Yeah, aiming with one stick is literally not possible.
That sounds awesome.
It's so hard.
Like I would probably buy someone's Nintendo 64 and GoldenEye just to play it again. I have so many fond memories of that.
It's more expensive than you think.
Oh man,
probably you can get like an emulator or something like that. Probably. for cheaper. Yeah.
So anyway, Star Wars content, Mike.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now I've been trying to think of my answer this entire time, and it's very difficult. If we're excluding TV shows,
you don't have to.
I'm not excluding TV shows
because that's too easy. Picking like Mandalorian or Ahsoka or Rebels or Clone Wars, like that's all too easy.
Yeah, there's so much good content out there. I'm tempted to say Dark Disciple because I love that book so much. I'm reading it again right now.
I just finished it. You're reading it again. Wow.
I am, yeah. This is only my second time reading it, actually. And I forgot a lot of what happened. So in Mike fashion, completely forgot what happens in half the book.
Well, I did. I finished it like, 2 weeks ago. And then it's probably longer than that by now. But
it gave some good character building to the other guy in there. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Voss.
Quinlan Voss.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about Voss.
I didn't care about at all before that book. And now I'm on board.
Yep. And I didn't even think about it, but in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show, they name drop Voss.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
That means something so different to me now.
He's in Clone Wars too, the cartoon.
He's
got a few episodes of Clone Wars that he's a character in.
But Dark Disciple would be after.
Dark Disciple was supposed to be Clone Wars, so it's the book is based off of episodes that were written for the Clone Wars, but were never produced.
That's right. Yep.
So that would have been so sick to get that in actual Clone Wars, though.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So I don't know. I still dream of one day when they'll adapt that to some kind of screen. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I think it'll be sweet if they do.
It would be so good. It would be so good.
If it's not that, it's Rebels. That show is just incredible from start to finish. Every episode is a banger. Like
every episode.
Every episode is
not
good.
Every. Not every episode.
I disagree. I think every episode is good.
Come on. I've never known you to lie, Mike.
Tell me a bad episode.
And to be completely fair,
what's a bad episode?
The whole first season, you could just skip.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. When was the last time you guys watched it?
Not that long ago.
I just rewatched season 4 before Ahsoka came out.
Yeah, I did too. And then I previously was watching it already, so I think I watched the whole thing again before Ahsoka.
Yeah, we did that before Ahsoka came out. Watched the whole thing. I enjoyed all of it. I honestly don't think there's a bad episode of that show. I still haven't heard a bad episode that you guys named. So.
Well, because I don't remember. They're that forgettable, Mike.
They're so forgettable that they're just there are 100% filler episodes.
They're not nearly as many as the Clone Wars.
There's
Clone
like
Wars
one
is
a
like
season.
half filler.
Yeah, Clone Wars is way worse for sure.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy every episode of that show too. So maybe I'm just easy to please, which is true when it comes to Star Wars.
I did start rewatching Clone Wars because I don't remember anything from that. It's truly like a black hole in my memory. So slowly.
Yep, there's a lot. There has become so much Star Wars content that it's so hard to like keep all of it in your brain.
Yeah,
yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah. Well,
especially
my favorite
if you don't play video games.
Yeah.
I know you think my favorite's going to be the Power Rangers episodes of Book of Boba Fett, but it is not. No, honestly, it's Andor for me. Like
Andor's great.
I love spy thriller kind of content in general. And Andor and Rogue One is definitely one of my favorite Star Wars movies. Like it just every time I watch it, like this thing is so good. So I love the tie-in of just regular dudes, like no Jedi, you know, with superpowers. It's just working hard at figuring it out. And the character development around Cassian is so good. I'm loving it. I can't wait for more of that.
I'm going to go off on a slight tangent. So if you're listening and you only care about Star Wars, I'm sorry, but you mentioned spy thrillers. David, have you watched Slow Horses?
I've never even heard of that.
You need to watch it.
Slow Horses?
Yeah, it's on Apple Plus, and it's probably one of the best like spy thriller shows I've ever watched.
Ooh. I think you mentioned this on the podcast before.
I may have. It's so good.
Oh, it's Gary Oldman.
Yeah, Gary Oldman's
That's all you gotta tell me.
Right yeah, okay. A little Harry Potter.
His best role. I'm not joking.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, fantastic. I will definitely watch this.
You need to watch it.
That's perfect. I'm off for the next couple of days, so this will be my...
Whoever is listening to this podcast, if you haven't watched that show, watch that show. It's so good.
I'm pumped.
They just finished their 3rd season.
Can we get Gary Oldman in Star Wars?
I'm actually kind of shocked that he's not already in Star Wars.
And can we get a Keanu Reeves?
Yeah,
Jedi?
Keanu Reeves would be amazing.
Or Sith.
I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, Dark Side Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Like Keanu Reeves as a Sith that is essentially John Wick, but he's a Sith instead of a human.
Yeah.
Well, he could be a human too, but he's wielding the dark side instead of dual pistols.
All right.
Well, that's enough Star Wars. Let's get into some cards.
More Star Wars.
Some more Star Wars. That's enough of that. Okay, so news of the week. Obviously, if you haven't watched stuff and maybe you're in the future and watching this, but we just got draft news this week. Mike and Jay made a whole video kind of recapping everything that they talked about, and we got to watch the FFG guys do a little bit of a draft, although some of the cards were hidden. So
yeah, they were.
Who knows? But since you guys have had a few days to think about drafting, and since you made that video, your kind of live reactions, how are you feeling about draft? Or if you've seen anything in the community about draft that you thought was interesting, what do you think?
I'm pumped about draft. I can't wait to draft. That's all I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be really fun to do.
So fun.
Yeah. What was your guys' personal biggest takeaway from that?
Don't draft IG88 as a leader.
Are they going
but he's
to
the draft leader.
Yeah. Are they going to have official tournaments that are draft, and will it be a competitive format like Flesh and Blood does?
Yeah, like the calling.
I hope they do that, because I always find that fun to watch and fun to play.
They're actually doing Flesh and Blood's doing their first draft. Yeah, I think it's draft calling. That the whole calling is draft, and it's at the release of this next set where they're doing like a celebration in Queenstown where they are based or whatever. That'll be cool, but they also do like Worlds is like half draft, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean it's cool because it tests a different skill set than Constructed does, and it requires you to be a little bit more resourceful maybe, and like kind of think on your feet a little bit more, which I have a lot of fun doing. I'm not always good at it, but I have a lot of fun doing it. And I don't know, I've talked about this before, but it's just like everything about it is just like another hit of dopamine, which is very nice for me, because I just kind of like need that novelty to keep me on the hook. And every pack you open new stuff, every time you draft it's completely different. You're playing against different people, you're playing different decks, and I just love it.
Yeah, watching them reveal foils and hyperspace cards as they were going,
sweet.
I was like, even just a foil tie advance, like so just simple.
It just looks so good.
I was like, oh my gosh! And then the hyperspace bases, it just
that's one thing that we didn't actually talk about in our video that we did learn about, is that like the hyperspace bases have hyperspace tokens on the back, and I think that's so cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, it's just like that other sort of game within a game of tracking down these things.
The collectability is like off the charts in this game.
It's so good. Yeah, so my reaction, obviously, I love the idea that you pull the leaders out and you draft the 3 leaders first. I think that's like one of the biggest in my mind. As I was watching this, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, because that takes a little bit of pressure off of like, oh, here's this card. This is this could be so good, but it
literally couldn't be the other way. Like there's no way you draft your leader in your packs. Like that doesn't make any
you could end up with no leader.
No, right? And then what do you do?
you get the generic Jawa from the rival set of Destiny.
God,
this is your leader.
you can tell that they've learned a lot from that experience. And from Destiny, because FFG hasn't really had a draftable game like this ever. And this feels so perfectly done, I guess, for what the game is. I mean, I love having the leaders up front because it gives you a bit of a direction when you're drafting too. You don't have to look at a pack and treat every card equally, especially as you get further and further into the draft. You're probably a bit more locked into what you're playing.
Why do you think they didn't do it the way Flesh and Blood does it? Do you know how Flesh and Blood draft?
You
can use any
leaders.
Common leader from this set. You can't use them from a different set. So you just draft and then pick your leader after the draft.
But there's 16 draftable leaders.
Yeah.
Versus Flesh and Blood has three
or four, right? So like the decision space around, which
they had one that had six characters, and that was a really good draft set. But there is a draft set that had 6. It's not 16, but I don't know. I don't think that is bad. Maybe it's fine. I'm just curious why they did it that way.
I think
adding an extra step.
Simplicity and accessibility would be my guess. Also, the fact that rare leaders exist and they exist in the rare slot, like
But Majestic
what do you do
leaders
with those?
exist.
Yeah, but they take up the rare slot in Flesh and Blood.
Oh, do they not? And then they don't in this. I mean, I guess that's. I don't know if it's necessarily more streamlined though, having to have an extra step of draft before the draft.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's more streamlined, but it takes some of the decision space away from like the draft itself. I think like it front loads it, so you're choosing your leader first, and then you're building your deck around your leader, rather than the opposite, where you're building your deck and then you're picking whichever leader fits it best.
Sure.
Yep.
I don't know which way's better, but
yeah. Well, I like it. I thought it was interesting how Xander got stuck with 2 Bobas and a Thrawn, like getting locked into like yellow villain only. I'm like, ooh, that does feel kind of bad.
Does it? Like if you're sitting next to Xander, you're probably like, okay, I'm never getting a yellow card, so I'm just gonna skip all these, and he may end up with like all the good yellow stuff because of that.
Yeah, just
do you reveal what leaders you have are draftable?
Yeah, all of that is open information.
Everything's open
while they're doing it.
Like even while you're picking like your second leader, you can look at what leaders people have already chosen.
That's why Tyler,
which is part of the.
He said he passed Xander a second Boba Fett because he's like, oh, okay, well, then
he's already got this. Yeah. That's like another element of the strategy too. Like especially at more competitive events, you can like really use that to your advantage.
Yep. Yeah, imagine opening a showcase leader in draft.
I would love to do that.
Like, just
somebody will.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I'm pumped for draft. I love draft. In Destiny, all I wanted to do was draft. I was like, let's just do more of that and like weird formats and
draft wasn't even good in that game. So
yeah, and I still loved it. But I do think it is interesting in this game that you can play stuff out of aspect with the penalty, and I'm very curious how much that will come into play and what cards will kind of rise to the top of like, you just always take this card. Doesn't matter what aspect. Yeah. All right. Anything else on the draft news?
Nope.
I think we covered it.
My one critique with the all the new spoilers we got, and you guys revealed the spoilers, is you guys talked about Mon Mothma and nobody made a joke about an uncut sheet of Mon Mothma.
I 100% did.
I didn't hear it.
Did you?
I 100% said, maybe I was talking. Oh no, I was talking to somebody else.
Okay, there we go.
It wasn't in the video.
I was gonna say, I was like, you
wasted it on somebody else.
Yeah, I wasted it already. I didn't want to tell the same joke again.
That's good.
I mean, I kind of want one now just for the memes.
A hyperspace foil uncut sheet.
I would for sure put it on my wall.
There we go. That's good. Okay, moving on. Next topic of discussion. So when I was doing the 12 Days of Christmas videos, a lot of the feedback I got from people that they're like, hey, the most interesting part to me is watching you build the deck or talk about why you built the deck you built. And it was sort of like the gameplay was just sort of like oh, cool, thanks for doing that. But I think because all of us are like so invested in this game, there are certain things I think we take for granted, realizing, hey, a lot of the people who are discovering Star Wars Unlimited, like we've seen an uptick in like our content engagement. We've seen uptick in like Discords, and like people just seem to be jumping into the game, that there are some like basic things that as content creators, I think we need to like almost go back and remind ourselves of like things that maybe we've figured out that we can share and even just open up for conversation. So I wanted to talk briefly about your deck building philosophy. Like, how do you approach building a deck in Star Wars Unlimited? Talking about how you choose the leader, how you choose the base, what you're looking at, what you're avoiding, and just sort of see kind of where it flows from there. So Mike, we'll kick it off with you. When you're sitting down to build the deck, when you're like, okay, I'm going to build a deck for Star Wars Unlimited, where are you starting? Give us your first few steps.
So first, I take all the good cards.
Well, you pick a leader.
I put them in a deck. Yeah,
you didn't even pick a leader. He took all the good cards from every color.
I take all the good cards. I put them in the deck. I don't put the bad cards in the deck, and that's it. We're done. It's good.
Great. Cool. Good podcast, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a more serious answer would be I usually do start with a leader because I feel like it informs what the rest of the deck wants to do.
100%.
I think sometimes you can maybe, I don't know, pick a card that you really want to play and then figure out which leader works best with that card. But I think usually I start with the leader and then try and figure out what that leader does best or what cards pair with that leader the best. And then kind of go from there. I don't know. It's so different depending on which leader it actually is. And I don't know what kind of mood I'm in. Like, do I want to build something that's super competitive? Do I want to build something that's fun? So I don't know. I guess then first step is like, what's your goal with the deck? Second step is like, what leader are you playing? Third step is like, what cards fit this deck? And then I kind of just like,
I think the easiest way to tackle it is like, say, all right, you have your leader, you have your base, so you know your colors. What do you do from there?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and let's say for the sake of this discussion, because there are times where we build stupid janky decks for fun, because that is fun to do. Let's just, for this saying, I just want to build a deck to win.
Sure.
Like I want to build at least somewhat competitive deck. I don't want to go to locals and go 0-3.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's fair. So I think we'd all kind of agree it starts with the leader, saying, okay, this leader is interesting to me, and it certainly defines how you build the deck. Like even within Red Villain, if you choose Darth Vader or Grand Inquisitor,
yeah, very different deck.
You're gonna build them very different. Even just the base you choose with that is gonna feel different. You see a lot of people with Vader choose a green base because they want access to Super Laser, Technician, DJ Death Star, or possibly resupply. Sometimes not. Yeah. Just because Vader comes out at 7, and you want to get Vader on the table as fast as you can, because that accelerates your win condition. Versus like with Grand Inquisitor, you see Grand Inquisitor being paired with all different colors, but you see yellow quite frequently. I've seen a lot of Grand Inquisitor yellow for the ones who were playing it. I liked him with red to try the double red aggression stuff. But so
I like him with blue. So yeah,
sure. So there, I think also, before we skip past this part on the base piece, I think it is getting interesting right now choosing a base, because it started with we had only the 30 health generics. Then we got the 25 health things. These are fun. These are interesting. And now it's like, holy cow, like right now in the current revealed card pools, we're playing games like Sabine and aggro is crazy good. Sometimes you just want a higher cost health base, and the epic action on the rare base is not good enough. So I do think there's an interesting decision point even there to decide, like, can you definitely use the epic action on this to advance your win condition? And I don't have an answer for that really definitively yet.
It feels bad to end a game and not having used that for sure, right? So I think it's also kind of like a gameplay thing where like you want to make sure that you get value out of it when you can, even I think equally to a deck building thing. But sometimes having an extra 5 health is worth not having an ability. But,
and dare I say, if you're new, it might be worth it just to stick with the 30 health until you get some games under your belt, and you can
keeps things simpler. One less thing to think about while you're figuring the game out.
Like I think Jeddah City as a yellow, it's epic action. You give something -4, -0.
That's probably the hardest one to use well. I would say.
Yeah.
But it's also the one that's closest to the same amount of value that you're losing from your HP. Like you're losing 5, but you're preventing 4 in the like lowest floor, right?
Well, if they don't play anything that has 4 attack, then not entirely.
Sure.
You could potentially be worse off there, but generally, yeah. It's interesting though, because like Jay, you said that you typically pick the base before you start building the deck itself.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for our discussion on how to build a deck, it's probably easiest to explain what we do after we already know what color and leader we have.
Sure. Yeah. Because there's definitely times where I'm building it one way, trying to fit in one color, then I realize like, oh wait, maybe this other color actually works better. And you can swap out, some stuff from one color to the other. I think like Luke is a really good example of this. I've been trying to build Luke decks with like every single color. I think it's totally possible to do that. Same with Han. I've been doing that as well. I went from like blue to red to double yellow. I haven't actually played him with green yet, but I've seen gameplay of him with green. And they feel like, in some ways, they feel the same from color to color. And then in other ways, they obviously don't, because they have completely different cards. But it's going to be really interesting to see how people approach that element of the game. It's like you find a leader you really like, and then what makes you decide to play one color over another when the decks are sort of fairly similar, with like maybe a little different flavor here or there, depending on the deck.
Yep.
And a big part of that is the base, I think.
Yeah. By the way, as we're talking about building decks, I again just trying to be thinking about the new players who are discovering Star Wars Unlimited. Right now, we pretty much exclusively use SWUDB, SWUDB.com. You can go on there. all the cards are on there. You can mess with it. Parker does a great job keeping it updated, and he's in our Discord too. So just a little shout out there. All right, so you kind of have a general idea of what you're doing, and you're jumping into you're starting with your ground unit, or maybe you're not starting with your ground units. Like
I don't start with ground or space. I just
what do you start
look
with?
At the cost. Like what's my turn 1 play going to be? Do I want multiple 1 costs, or am I going to play like 8 2 costs? How many 2 costs do you need? Turn 1 drops then do you need to have in your deck? Probably minimum 8 so that you can at least hit it. But not every deck does that. It depends. But I like to make sure I can drop something good on turn 1.
Yeah, how bad does it feel in this game if you don't have a turn 1 drop?
I think it totally depends on the deck. Like I've won games where I don't have a turn 1 play.
But we're not all
more control. Well, right. It depends on what the deck wants to do. Sometimes like you don't necessarily need it. I think most of the time you want it, but I don't know. I think like in decks that want to go super late, especially if you're not playing against something like hyper aggro, which you're not always going to, right? Like, saving your resources for later in the game in terms of like cards in your hand and stuff like that, not spending something turn 1. Sometimes it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. You definitely, it is generally better to have a turn 1 play. Right? But I don't think it's necessary. Like, I don't think it's an auto lose.
Yeah. I think it increases your chances of losing. But how many? So do you have an average number of turn 1 plays that you play in a deck, Mike?
I typically don't build a deck that has fewer than 4 different 2-cost cards, like all at 3 of. So what is that, 12?
So 12, yeah.
Yeah. Usually not. If I'm playing like 1-cost cards, a little bit different there. Maybe I'll go down to like 3, 2 of, or 3 of. Not okay. I'm gonna say this differently. Maybe I go down to like 9 2-costs, or like, I don't know, 8 2-costs, and then a bunch of 1-costs also. But I think it really depends.
Now, when you say 2 costs, are you talking just units, or what about upgrades?
Yeah. I'm talking just units that you can play on the first turn of the game.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Tarkin, you're playing 1-cost Imperials. If you're playing, who's the other person?
Luke, potentially.
Yeah, Luke.
Yeah, maybe Luke.
You could shield.
R2s and stuff like that. Yep. But if you don't have a 1-cost ability to pair with the 1-cost character, you're probably just playing 2s.
Yep. I'm with you on the 12, the rule of 12 there, Mike. I like to have 20% of my deck able to be played on turn 1.
I did the math at one point. Well, not me. I had ChatGPT do the math, and ChatGPT did it for me, and it's something like 96% chance to have a turn 1 play if you have 12 in your deck. I feel like that's
assuming
enough.
a mulligan possibility, and that's pretty good. It's pretty solid.
Pretty high,
yeah. Okay, so we've got the turn 1 stuff going. Then what are you looking for from there? I feel like that's one of the bigger decisions. And then how are you filling out your curve?
First thing,
let's talk about curve. Actually,
is if I'm playing double yellow, I put cunning in.
I mean, honestly, Jay's right though. Like you just I think second step is
pick the good cards.
Yeah.
That might even be the first step.
If I'm playing red hero, I'm putting an A-wing in my deck and K2
window.
Like you just pick the good cards. But yeah, obviously you have a cost curve. If you're playing aggro like Sabine, I know at least me and Mike like to stop at like 4 to 5 resource costs, maybe even 4.
Yeah, I don't have any 5 costs in mine.
Yeah.
If you're playing something else, then maybe you play higher cost cards, just depending on if you're playing green and ramping or like control, like Luke blue, trying to drag the game out with shields and controlling and stuff like that.
And stuff.
You can play some higher cost things.
So two things again, just it's because I've been teaching this game a lot recently, where to people who don't play these kind of games, where now I have their questions in the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is aggro?
No,
aggro is
not aggro. No, not what's aggro. It's what does it mean to be on curve, or what is that? What does curve mean in general? And then you used the word ramp, and I realized that's not a regular word that a non-traditional card gamer would do. So I think let's stop for a moment for their sake, because they might even listen to this, and let's define some terms.
I hope so. I want non-card gamers to discover this game and figure out how to play.
Yeah. So ramping basically means being able to gain extra resources into your resource pool to use for the rest of the game that you normally don't get. Like every turn you're going to gain one resource. Think about like Hearthstone if you've ever played that, or any other game that's like you gain one extra resource every turn. You do the same kind of thing in this game, except ramping is allowing you to gain more resources to that pool through card effects so that you can get to higher cost things quicker.
Yeah. So like resupply is an easy example. It's a 3-cost green event. It says put this card into play as a resource. So you pay 3, so you kind of lose your turn. You're not playing a unit, but you're putting a card into your resources because it's allowing you to get to possibly your leader deploying sooner or your bigger items, as Jay mentioned. Mike, what's a cost curve or like on curve?
Yeah, so I guess those are two sort of different things. So a cost curve is just how many cards do you have at each cost in your deck? And like on a graph, if you were to look at it, that's sort of how I visualize it. It's like literally the curve of like what things cost in your deck. And then playing something on curve is like, if you have 2 resources, you're playing something for 2 resources. If you have 3 resources, you're playing something for 3 resources, and so on and so on. Because generally spending all your resources on every turn is a good way to maximize the value that you're getting.
Right. So there's a reason you wouldn't play, I don't know, 30 cards in your deck at cost 5.
That costs 1. Yeah. Or that cost 1.
Yeah. Or that 1. Yeah. Just basically you're trying to think like, okay, as I'm going through this game, I want to be playing better stuff along the way.
Yeah. Not just... you want to have something to do at each point. If you have all 5 cost stuff in your deck, you're not going to be able to start playing cards until you have 5 resources.
Yeah.
Vice versa. If you only have 1 cost card stuff in your deck, you're going to run out of cards by turn like 3, and your opponent's going to probably be playing like higher quality cards than you are.
Yep.
So there's a balance to hit there, and you want to kind of hit like each turn at the apex of like the value that you can bring to the table.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about ground versus space. What are your guys' philosophies on ground versus space? How do you approach that?
I haven't figured it out yet. I kind of just put good cards in, and then I decide, do I have enough space units?
It's just a gut thing for you.
It's hard in some colors. Like I've noticed like certain villain decks have a really hard time playing in space. Like I think villain red, like blue, or like red green is like kind of weak in space, especially like early game.
At least now with the revealed cards.
Especially when Hero has like Millennium Falcon and A-Wings.
A-Wing,
and Wing
Falcon,
leaders
Wing Leader. Like, yeah, there's so many good Hero space units, especially that people play a lot. And so I think it really depends on the deck. I like going a little bit heavier into space in general because of that. Because I think you can often capitalize off of your opponent not being there.
And you also play Hero.
Yeah, I do play a lot of Hero.
Yeah.
But even in villain, like I try and slot in as many space units as I can a lot of the time, regardless of like whether they're good or not, I guess. I don't know. I try not to put bad cards in my deck, but sometimes like the fact that they're 2 different like arenas means that you can get away with putting a card in your deck that's like, I don't know, quote unquote, like suboptimal if it helps you sort of, either shore up that weakness or helps you, I don't know, play a unit that's not going to be able to be interacted with as easily.
Yeah. Is there a minimum amount of space units you think is correct?
No.
I probably wouldn't play a deck with less than like 9 or 10. If you're playing a deck with less than that, if you play a deck with 4, I think you're asking to lose.
Yeah.
Not if you have other ways to mitigate it. If you're playing a deck that does a lot of exhausting per se, then I just exhaust your stuff over there. Or if I'm playing,
are you only going to play cunning decks like double cunning?
If I have entrenched in my deck, I just entrench your A-Wing, and now it's not doing anything.
Those are good answers, right? If you want to think about it like that, you can count those as your answers to space or your space units. But
and then I think eventually just ambush and kill whatever you got over there. It's easy.
Well, that is a space unit, so that counts.
Yeah, that's my one. That's the one that I have in my deck.
All right, build a deck with just Azatuk and other nonsense, and we'll see how it goes.
Let me look real quick. I'm pretty sure my double yellow Thrawn only has that in it.
It definitely doesn't.
Oh no,
that's a hero card.
I have TIE Fighter in it.
You have TIE Fighter. You have
you should have the Cartel Spacer.
Yeah.
You have Cartel Spacer.
I have a few.
You got at least 9.
There we go. Yeah,
but I don't like playing them. Is all I'm saying. Compared.
You're right.
Yeah, we haven't even. I don't know if we'll get into sideboarding, but it is interesting when you think about sideboarding, having these other cards in a best of 3 that you can slide in. If you're playing against a red hero deck, it's like I better have answers to those A-wings quickly, because if I don't, I just lose. And same with like Falcon and things like that. But yeah, I think I've played decks with just 9 space units. I think I'm most comfortable at 12. Another rule of 12.
I think at one point in one of the streams, someone at FFG mentioned that. Oh, it might have been in the Twitter Q&A or whatever. They mentioned like a 2-for-1 ratio of like ground units to space units in your deck is the sweet spot. Okay. And I would say that's like fairly accurate. It's like a good guide.
Yeah, I see that.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess so. Then you kind of got into events there. But so if you're in a 2-for-1, let's say if I have 24 ground units, 12 space units, that puts me at 36. I've got 14 other slots for things, which that may be. I guess it depends on the deck.
Upgrades, right?
Yeah. So if you're running Boba, if that's your strategy, and you're going with like an event-heavy thing where you want Greedo triggering all the time, and you want Bosk doing damage and pinging stuff with lots of events, like Boba decks, I've seen up to like 18 events in a Boba deck, which is high, but he certainly uses them well. And then upgrades, it's not necessarily like you have to have upgrades. It's more of a value question, right?
Yeah, it's like what is it doing for your deck? Is it worth putting in your deck?
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean,
Jay would tell you if you have a blue deck, you have to run 3 entrenched.
I mean, at least in your sideboard, minimum.
I'd probably agree with you. Honestly,
it's a good card.
You should at least bring it to the table, whether it's in your main deck or your sideboard.
Yeah, I usually have at least 2 in almost any blue deck I make. It's just good. Yeah, super flexible.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I think it even applies to events. What you're saying of like how much value you're going to get out of each one. I think more than any other card type, like events and upgrades just like are super dependent on what your deck is trying to do. And that determines what types of events and upgrades you put in your deck and how many and, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know in the Sabine deck that I've been playing, I think there's only 9 events in the deck and no upgrades, but I have other decks that have like 14 events and 6 or 7 upgrades. So yeah, very, very much depends.
Other random like deck building tips you guys might have. I have another one, but you guys can be thinking about what you want to do. But like, watch your traits as you're building decks. I think I've seen a lot of people picking up the game for the first time, dropping Wing Leader after they play like Yoda, and it's like, oh, I know it seems like Yoda's a rebel.
But he's not.
I do that all the time with Millennium Falcon because Millennium Falcon should be a rebel, but
not a rebel. So if you build a deck with like a bunch of these guys, like Chewbacca, like Falcon is a good example, Han. Yoda, that you think in your head, you just naturally think this is rebel. Like double check your traits because you might not want Wing Leader in your deck because it only buffs. Otherwise, like a few cards and you're just paying 3 for a 2/1 in space and you're not getting value. So watch your traits.
I think that's just a rule of thumb for any card that exists that is based on something else being in your deck. Like for a cause, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, and for each one that's heroic, then you get to deal damage to their base. You might not want to have a ton of non-heroic cards in your deck for that. There might be like a minimum or maximum that you would want for either of those. Either direction. So yeah, I mean, if you're playing Fleet Lieutenant, you want to have a bunch of rebels. If you're playing the one you just talked about, then you want to have a bunch of rebels. So
yep. You guys have any other deck building philosophy or tips for new players as they're starting to build their decks?
I would say if you're just starting, like, don't take it too seriously. Just like build something as quickly as possible. Try it out, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then kind of go back to like the principles of deck building and see if you can make improvements.
It's also okay to net deck.
Yeah,
you can do that. I do it all the time. To test
Jay, what is net decking for our new people?
You can go on the internet and look for decks other people have built. So go to swoodv.com and click hot decks and click ours. Are we still
at the top? 1, 2.
Sabine is at the top. still.
All right. Okay. Oh, Jay, you got dropped, man. So
yeah, it happens.
I'm looking at it right now.
Jay's deck is a deck that he accidentally published.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to publish that deck, by the way.
So
you can't delete it.
So the top deck is Mike's, the deck to beat Sabine aggro. Which is there's a red-green Vader, and then sorry, the J-Braid J thing is still throwing me off. Your Iden red deck is still 3rd third in the hot decks.
His accidental publish.
Yes. Wanted to delete it.
And then my Tarkin Conversation Unplayable Christmas is number 4.
I like that deck a lot, actually.
Yes, it is fun. And then Jim's Cassian deck is number 6. So net deck away. The other great thing.
Quick note about the Sabine deck, real quick. If you're looking at that or you want a more up to date version, in the video that we published talking about that deck, I added in the comments like the most current version of that deck, which I haven't published that. I'm not planning on publishing like another one until we have the whole set, but I've switched things around a little bit. So
yeah, there you go. So here's the great thing too, because of volunteers in the community, you can go on SwooDB, you can build a deck and you click save, and then there's a little button that says Force Table on your deck page.
Yeah, that's
you can click Force Table. It'll take you to a new tab, and you can play it against the AI. You can play against any other deck right away. So you don't have to wait to be like, okay, I'm going to build this. I'm going to sleeve it up. I'm going to take it to locals. I'm going to get my face slammed in a few times and then come back and tinker. Like you can literally okay, I made this, doesn't work. And then you can take it and realize, oh, I have, 4 turn 1 drops. Oops, I need to fix that. And kind of tinker off the really rough edges just by playing the AI. You're not gonna be able to perfect the deck against the AI because the AI is not gonna. But it will reveal any gaping holes. That's like, oh, that interaction doesn't work the way I thought it did, or I'm missing X, Y, or Z as you start to get hands together. So I love the fact that that you can just literally click it right away and say, all right, I'm gonna just play a quick game with this. Cool. Any other deck tips, Jay?
The most crucial and critical one, which has been mentioned already today, put the good cards in your deck.
That is the best way to build a good deck. And the easiest way to build a good deck. I mean, it is, I guess, what are the good cards? Right.
If you're playing yellow, you put easy pickings in your deck. I mean, it's that easy, folks. It's that easy.
The problem is for a new player, sometimes the good cards look like the expensive cards. It looks like the Blizzard AT-AT. And you're like, oh, I'm going to play this 8-cost green thing because it hits so hard. But then you realize, oh, it comes into play exhausted. It doesn't do anything. And at that point of the game, you need to be able to ambush that in some way or you're just losing tempo.
Can you even do that? If you ambush in that, do you get to attack before it exhausts itself?
The Blizzard ATST. But yes, you can't. You're thinking about the AT-AT suppressor. The 8-8. The 8-8. Also, clever dad joke, by the way. But yes, the ambush and when played is in the same window.
It also exhausts. Does it exhaust itself?
All ground units.
Okay. Yeah. You could ambush it though.
Yeah.
You can.
Ambush doesn't care about you being exhausted
because does it not say ready and attack?
Well, you always enter play exhausted, but ambush is separate from the when played.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Good stuff. Thanks for helping all my friends who are new to games, guys.
Really anytime, if they made it this far.
So, all right. So I thought this would be fun as a thought experiment, which, Mike, you kind of alluded to it. But for future content, I thought it'd be great to just say, okay, for next time, we choose a leader. And since there's 4 of us, we all take a color.
Oh, interesting.
And then for next time, we talk about that leader and the specific color, saying okay, if I were to build a Krennic yellow deck, here are the cards that I think go really well with Krennic. Here's why I would include X, Y, or Z. And here's what I think Krennic yellow brings to the table versus Krennic with all the other colors. And then we can kind of rate and talk about what we think is the better color for that leader, or at least our opinion on it.
That sounds cool.
So you guys down for that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, okay. So we are obviously not all 4 of us on every one of these.
Right.
So
true.
What if we just collectively pick a leader? We all talk about the different colors that you could pair with that leader. And then we just talk about the leader in context of the different colors.
Because in a group project, Mike, we got some guys who are going to, freeload off of.
I bring the markers. I'll bring the markers.
This requires everybody participate in the group project, Mike.
Sure. But not everybody participates at all.
All right. Well, let's just choose a leader right now, and then offline we'll decide what how we're gonna do it. So, what do we want our first leader to be for next time? Stop.
He was just spoiled.
Please no. Han. Let's do Han.
Cool.
Yeah, that was Mike's first baby.
Perfect.
All right,
Han it is.
All right, next time we're talking about Han, and Jay's gonna lead the discussion.
Easy.
I think that's it for this time. I think I had some other stuff, but we're at a good time to hit pause. But if you're not in our Discord, be sure to jump into the Unplayable Discord. We've been having lots of great conversations about Star Wars Limited. It's been like, I feel like it's picking up every day, and it feels like on the weekends we all kind of catch our breath, and then Monday hits and like things start popping off again. And
the game, like you can tell the energy around the game is like really ramping up. It's very exciting.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So get in there, join us. We do have a channel on there called SWU LFG, looking for games. So if you're hopping on TTS and you want like a local community, I can't guarantee you'll find a game, but it's on there as an option if that's something you want to look for. So that's all I got. You guys got anything else?
I got nothing.
Wipe that stupid grin off your face, Jay. Until next time, guys. Thanks for watching. This has been Unplayable. Bye.